The Weight of Deception, A Tale of Betrayal and Redemption. Part 1, The Burden. The weight on Ethan Walker's shoulders grew heavier with each passing day. Ever since his father, Robert Walker, had passed away, the crushing burden of responsibility had fallen entirely on him. His mother, Margaret, was battling a terminal illness, cancer that was not only draining her energy but also consuming every last dollar of their family savings. Medical bills piled up like an avalanche, threatening to bury them alive. His younger sister, Emma, was still in high school, a bright girl with dreams of attending college. But those dreams came with a price tag that Ethan could barely comprehend, let alone afford. She was his whole world, the only reason he hadn't completely fallen apart. At just 23 years old, Ethan had endured hardships that would break a man twice his age. The bank loan hung over his head like a guillotine blade, ready to drop at any moment and leave his family homeless on the streets of Chicago. That particular evening, he was utterly exhausted. Between his studies at community college, his 2 part-time jobs, and the constant worry about home, he was being hollowed out from the inside. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, his gait was weary, and his mind was perpetually tangled in calculations, trying to figure out how to stretch every dollar, how to pay this bill or that one. He stood outside an old diner on the south side, the kind of place where you could still get coffee for $1.50 without anyone judging you. Ethan was fishing through his jacket pocket, counting out quarters and dimes, when he felt it, the distinct sensation of being watched. He looked up. A striking woman stood directly in front of him. There was something commanding about her presence, an unusual confidence in the way she carried herself. Her eyes were sharp, almost predatory, like a hawk sizing up its prey. This was Victoria Ashford, a name that carried significant weight in Chicago's business circles. She had carved out her place in a male-dominated industry, building an empire that few could rival. And now, that very woman stood before Ethan Walker. Her face revealed nothing, but something in those piercing eyes made Ethan deeply uncomfortable. "Ethan Walker," she said. Her voice was steady, authoritative, not asking a question, but stating a fact. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, that's me." Victoria's gaze remained fixed on him, as if she could see straight through to his soul. Ethan felt an inexplicable pressure under her scrutiny. "I know who you are," she continued calmly. "I know everything about your life. Your mother's illness. Your worries about your sister's education. The debt crushing you. And I also know that no matter how hard you work, none of it is going to be enough to solve your problems." Ethan's heart began to pound. How did this woman know so much about him? "Who are you?" he asked cautiously. "And what do you want from me?" A slight smile crossed Victoria's lips, but it held no warmth. "Marriage." Ethan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "What?" "I want you to marry me," Victoria repeated, her voice as confident as before. Ethan let out a nervous laugh despite himself. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No," she replied flatly. "This is a business proposition. If you marry me, in return, you'll get everything you need. I'll pay for your mother's treatment. I'll cover all of your sister's educational expenses through college. And I'll clear every single debt you owe. Your life will become infinitely easier." Ethan's fingers curled into fists. "And what do I have to do in return?" There was a sharp edge of suspicion in his voice now. "Simply be my husband," Victoria said with complete calm. "Our marriage will exist only on paper. But there will be certain conditions. You'll be free to live your life on your own terms. Your independence will remain intact. Ethan took a deep breath. Was this a dream? Or was this a deal that would save his life while mortgaging his soul? Part 2, The Mansion. Ethan had never imagined his life would change so drastically, so quickly. Just weeks ago, he'd been an ordinary young man struggling to keep his family afloat. Now, he was legally married to Victoria Ashford, one of Chicago's most powerful businesswomen. Their wedding had been as cold as it was formal. No celebration, no traditional vows, no family gathering. Just signatures on legal documents and a few witnesses. When Ethan first stepped into Victoria's mansion in the affluent Lincoln Park neighborhood, a strange feeling settled in his chest. The mansion was nothing short of palatial, high ceilings, expensive furniture, marble floors that gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and walls adorned with priceless artwork. Everything testified to the wealth of its owner. But despite its grandeur, the house felt cold and lifeless. As beautiful as it was, it lacked any sense of warmth or humanity. From the very first day, Ethan noticed something odd about the household staff. Marcus, who had worked there for years, always spoke with his eyes downcast. Whenever Ethan asked him a question, Marcus would hesitate, stammering before giving vague answers. Linda, the head housekeeper, was perpetually on edge. She avoided eye contact and never lingered near Ethan longer than necessary. There was an unspoken fear in their behavior, as if they were hiding something. Ethan also noticed the absence of life in the mansion. Despite its size and luxury, there were no family photographs anywhere. In most wealthy homes, you'd expect to see pictures capturing memories, vacations, celebrations, loved ones. Here, there was nothing. Just expensive paintings that told stories of distant, mysterious pasts. Their relationship remained superficial. Victoria was always busy with work, and when they did cross paths, their conversations were purely transactional. She never asked about his mother or his sister. It was as if she only interacted with him on her own terms. One night, as Ethan was heading to his room, he noticed a faint light coming from a section of the mansion. He paused and looked more carefully. The light was emanating from Victoria's private office, located in the most secluded part of the house, a place she often disappeared into for hours. Curiosity gnawed at him. Moving quietly, he approached the door and pressed his ear against it. He could hear Victoria's voice inside. "He doesn't know yet," she was saying. "But he will soon enough." Ethan's body went numb. What didn't he know? And why was Victoria ensuring he remained in the dark? His heart raced. Was this marriage more than just a business arrangement, as she'd claimed? Or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface? He backed away slowly, his mind spinning. One thing was certain, he was going to uncover the truth about this mansion, about Victoria, and about why she'd really brought him into her life. But was he truly ready to face what he might find? Part 3, The Revelation. Ethan's suspicion had transformed into obsession. The secrets hidden within the mansion's walls consumed his thoughts. He knew Victoria was concealing something deeply connected to his own life, perhaps even to his father's past. That night, when everyone in the mansion had gone to sleep, Ethan quietly slipped out of his room. An eerie silence blanketed the house as he made his way toward Victoria's office. This room had always unsettled him, the most private space in the mansion, where Victoria spent countless hours alone. But tonight was different. The door was unlocked, slightly ajar. It was the first time he'd ever seen it open. His heart hammered in his chest. This was his chance, perhaps his only chance to discover the truth. Ethan gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit by a single desk lamp, but it was enough to see everything clearly. Expensive wooden cabinets lined the walls, filled with carefully organized files and documents. A large safe was mounted on one wall. But his attention was drawn immediately to Victoria's desk. He began carefully opening drawers, one by one. Papers, files, half-written notes, everything was meticulously arranged. But none of it answered his questions. Then, in a corner drawer, he found it, a thick, old envelope. The edges were yellowed with age. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened it and pulled out the contents. The first thing he saw made his blood run cold, an old photograph. His father, Robert Walker, standing beside another man. In the photo, his father was smiling, and next to him stood someone Ethan now recognized, David Ashford, Victoria's late husband. Ethan felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He frantically began reading through the other documents in the envelope. There were letters written by David Ashford himself before his death. As Ethan read line after line, the life seemed to drain from his body. Victoria, you destroyed my life. You were my greatest betrayal. You ruined my business, embezzled my money. I trusted you, and you deceived me. Because of you, my company went bankrupt. Because of you, my reputation was destroyed. Because of you, I lost everything. Because of you, I have nothing left to live for. The letter slipped from Ethan's hands. His mind reeled. Was this true? Had his father betrayed David Ashford? Had Robert Walker, the man Ethan had always believed to be honest and hardworking, actually destroyed another man's life? But wait. The letter wasn't about Robert Walker. It was about Victoria. David Ashford was accusing her of betrayal. Suddenly, a cold, calm voice shattered the silence. So, you finally found it. Ethan turned slowly. Victoria stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. There was no surprise in her eyes, only a strange satisfaction, as if she'd been expecting this moment all along. Ethan clutched the letter tightly, his throat dry. But he forced himself to stay composed. So all of this was a lie, he said, his voice thick with anger and disbelief. This marriage. Everything. This wasn't a deal. This was revenge. Victoria smiled faintly, but there was no kindness in it. You're smart, Ethan. I thought it would take you longer to figure it out. Ethan's body shook with rage. You used me. You took advantage of my desperation. All because you wanted revenge on my father. Victoria took a long breath. Years of buried pain flickered in her eyes. Your father ruined my life, Ethan. David wasn't just my husband, he was my foundation. He built everything from nothing, with his own blood and sweat. And your father took it all away. David committed suicide because of him. Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. What? Yes, Victoria said coldly. He took his own life. Because your father left him with nothing. Ethan's breathing quickened. The image of his father, the man he'd idolized, began to crumble before his eyes. Had Robert Walker really been the person Ethan always believed him to be? But something didn't add up. The letter accused Victoria, not Robert Walker. Was she lying? Was she twisting the truth to justify her revenge? Part 4, The Counter-Investigation. Ethan couldn't accept Victoria's version of events at face value. Too many pieces didn't fit. If his father had truly been guilty, why had Victoria waited all these years? And why did David's letter accuse her instead of Robert Walker? He refused to remain a pawn in her game any longer. He needed answers, real answers. And he needed help. Ethan reached out to his most trusted friend, Connor Hayes, a sharp legal mind from his college days. When Ethan explained everything, Connor didn't hesitate for a second. "You need someone who can dig up buried truths," Connor said seriously. "I know just the person." That person was Miles Donovan, a private investigator with a reputation for uncovering corruption and solving cases that others couldn't crack. Miles had the instincts of a bloodhound and the patience of a chess master. "A woman like Victoria Ashford doesn't marry someone out of pure revenge," Miles said during their first meeting. "There's always more to the story. I guarantee this isn't just about settling a score." For weeks, Miles and Connor dug deep into Victoria's past, her business records, bank transactions, legal filings, everything. And then, one day, they found it. The truth that changed everything. Victoria Ashford wasn't just a vengeful widow. She was a criminal. Her name was connected to multiple financial scandals. She had been running a sophisticated money laundering operation for corrupt politicians and organized crime figures. The mansion wasn't just for show, it was a hub where illegal transactions took place, where dirty money was cleaned and legitimized. Ethan finally understood. Victoria hadn't brought him into her life solely to avenge her husband's death. This was far more calculated. She'd made him a pawn so she could maintain a facade of innocence. If authorities ever came knocking, she could claim she was just a widow trying to move on, married to a respectable young man. She had used him as a shield. Part 5, Justice. Armed with the evidence Miles had gathered, bank records, incriminating emails, proof of illegal transactions, Ethan made the hardest decision of his life. He went to the authorities. Within days, the Chicago Police Department opened an official investigation into Victoria Ashford. When federal agents arrived at the mansion with an arrest warrant, Victoria's face remained emotionless. There was no fear in her eyes, no regret. "You think you can destroy me, Ethan?" Her voice was icy, laced with venom. "I'm one of the most powerful women in this city. Do you really believe this pathetic little crusade of yours will succeed?" Ethan met her gaze, his expression just as cold. "I don't need to destroy you," he said quietly. "Your own hatred and obsession with revenge have already done that." Victoria stared at him for a long moment, then let out a hollow laugh. 3 days later, Victoria Ashford was formally arrested. Her business empire crumbled. Those who had once danced to her tune now turned their backs. The mansion, once a symbol of her power, was seized and put up for auction. Ethan was offered ownership of the estate as part of the settlement. But he refused. "This isn't just bricks and mortar," he told Connor. "It's a graveyard of lies, deception, and hatred. I can't carry that burden with me." He sold the mansion and used the proceeds to start fresh. Part 6, Freedom. During this tumultuous period, Ethan met Sophia Daniels, a nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Sophia was kind, genuine, and grounded, the complete opposite of Victoria. Their first meeting was purely by chance, but friendship quickly blossomed into something deeper. Sophia's eyes held no deceit. Her smile was real. She wasn't a burden, she was a breath of fresh air. She represented freedom. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he could truly breathe. A few years later, they married. And then came the greatest joy of Ethan's life, their son, Lucas. When Ethan held his newborn son for the first time, he realized something profound. He was finally free. He was no longer just Robert Walker's son. He was no longer a pawn in Victoria Ashford's game. He was Ethan Walker, a man who had faced his past, uncovered the truth, and forged his own identity. And for the first time in his life, he was truly, completely free. The end. Sometimes, the chains that bind us aren't made of steel, they're made of secrets, lies, and the sins of those who came before us. But the moment we choose to seek the truth, no matter how painful, we take the first step toward real freedom. This is the story of Ethan Walker, a man who refused to remain a victim of someone else's revenge. And in doing so, he discovered who he truly was. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, your past does not define your future. You do.